Welcome to a new episode of Adapt&Able, where we explore identity transformations of people, of places, and of organizations. Today I'm speaking with Phil Belau, the current mayor of Lüderitz, someone whose roots in this coastal town run deep. Phil has lived through this town's quiet years, but now stands at the helm of one of this town's most defining periods of change. With the arrival of new industries like kelp farming, salmon farming, but also green hydrogen production, the town faces a potential opportunity for transformation. Phil and his team carries the responsibility, but also the privilege, to guide this community through this potential transformation. Today we're going to explore not just the identity transformation of the town, but also, Phil, possibly some of your transformations and how these interact. Welcome to Adapt&Able, Phil.
Thank you, Rita. What an amazing opportunity and what a privilege to be here this morning. Really excited to chat to you about what you know we're passionate about. I'm fortunate to know that you also share the sentiment and passion for Lüderitz. And really just excited to get into it and to share the inner workings of Lüderitz Town Council and the Lüderitz community, and then obviously what we try to do to get Lüderitz ready for what's on its way.
Fantastic. Let's jump right in.
Yeah.
From a personal perspective, what does the town of Lüderitz mean to you and your family, and has it evolved over the years?
Yeah, they always joke and say that you cry twice about Lüderitz. The first time is when you come, and the second time is when you leave. And it's kind of true, because when I first moved to Lüderitz in 1999, got to this sleepy little coastal town, didn't know a lot of people yet, and there wasn't a whole lot to do. Until I started meeting some people and I realized that, listen, we're just in the most magnificent part of Namibia. So much to do out in nature, so much to do in the town if you meet the right people. And now you will struggle to get me out of Lüderitz, because I absolutely love that town. That community is really the thing that makes it special to me. I think you can have landscapes, yes, and you can have vistas and you can have beautiful views, but without a community like the Lüderitz community, we call ourselves very proudly Buchters. Buchtership is across all boundaries. Once you're considered a Buchter, you're a Buchter for life.
I can imagine. Well, there's so much density and richness in what you've said there, Phil, so I want to pick at a few bits.
Okay.
And again, from the get-go, it's so great to already hear all of your passion come alive. Where does this word Buchter come from? And I hear people speak of it quite commonly, like you've said, across ethnic groups. So what does the culture of a true Buchter represent? Can you explain that to me a bit?
So Bucht obviously is a bay in German, and Buchter is just the way that the Lüderitz community took that word and made it their own. So it actually had a lot of negative connotations if you look back at the dark history of Namibian colonization. But how the community took that word and made it their own and gave it new meaning.
Love that.
Really, that is the most magnificent thing about a resident of Lüderitz. You will meet them anywhere, and they will refer to you as a Buchter, and they will call themselves a Buchter. And I think it's become part of our identity as a community. And what it really means is just that the town is so isolated, and
yes,
even before it was way worse. We weren't connected with flights, and we weren't connected with all this new opportunity. So this sleepy little community had to fight for their own progress, and if they had wants and needs, they had to do it together. And that is really something that I've realized even now in my tenure as a mayor, is that you can count on the Buchters to come to your aid. If there's a crisis, you put out the message, and the people just come, and they really, that is the thing that makes me so proud of that community.
Yes, and I love that emphasis, because something that really touched my heart and I found impressive, that is not common everywhere else, is this fact that people beyond their ethnic categorization, beyond their social categorization, unite around a common identity that unifies people and actually bring a sense of oneness that I think is a special weapon in your armor, which I think you acknowledge and hear, which I'm really, really glad
They'll even say that in Lüderitz we don't have Oshivambo, we don't have Nama, we don't have whites,
Correct.
We have Buchters.
Exactly.
And that is really, I think, in practice. It's not just something that we say, it's something that we live.
Another thing that you said there that I think just for our listeners want to clarify is this reality that Lüderitz is a small desert coastal town on the west coast of Namibia, and it's historically known for a colonial mining town, like you've implied, and more recently a small fishing town.
Yeah.
But I think what is really distinct about it is this fact that it sits right at the top of one of the world's oldest, most pristine deserts, but like it's literally hundreds of kilometers away from just about anywhere and anything. What does this remoteness bring to the uniqueness of the identity of Lüderitz?
Yeah, self-sufficiency is the word that pops into my mind. We make do with less in a community like Lüderitz. Of course, we have ambitions of grandeur, and we like fancy and nice things. And right now, we're blessed to have opportunities that'll get us there. But we've always been able to make do with what we have as a community. And we might not have it all, but the appreciation for what we have, and I think really that is just the appreciation for what we can make with what we have, and how we've subsisted over all these years out in a desert where nobody's supposed to live. It's the land that God made in anger, and we live right there.
And the wind we experience there definitely affirms that. I love that. But I think that point that you're making there, in my experience, remoteness that develops self-sustainability, I think it also brings in elements of humility. That I think allows you to go through booms and busts because you know what it means. So there's a resilience that is in that community that I think is also quite distinct.
And to help your community, we really, as a community, you're used to knocking at your neighbor's door for sugar.
It's not just a story.
I think that culture is changing a little bit, but it's always been like that. That that if you're in need, you can just knock on your neighbor's door. And it's probably a 95% chance that they'll be able to help you. So that is the thing, that this community has really pulled itself together and really managed to live out there where it's really horrible at times. And we've had many challenges, where other areas are developing, and there's funds available for certain socioeconomic developments and things where we haven't always had these opportunities.
Yes.
And I just love how I see residents use the little they have to impact other people's lives. And that is, if all towns were like that, the world would be an amazing place.
I think we're moving to a place where that might become a critical skill. So, be glad you already have it. I know it's learned through hardship and hard-earned skill, but nonetheless. I want to come back a little bit to you, Phil, before we jump back to Lüderitz. Today, as you walk through the streets of Lüderitz, what moments or places evoke for you a deep sense of belonging?
Everywhere I go in town, I obviously have memories, great memories. But obviously, when your feet touch that cold Atlantic, that is where you feel like you're home. I've obviously, like I said earlier, been all over. And every time I get back home, I'm home. And it's that sense of having a home, having a place that you call home. It's always been something that I was searching for, if I'm honest. That's why I think moving around as a young kid, going from school to school, town to town, you had to build yourself in a new town every time. Every time I have to find new friends. And to me, going back, Lüderitz was my refuge. I always had this safe place where I could go back to. And really, since the last time that I moved back was probably about 12 years ago.
Yes.
And since then, I was committed to stay there because I felt that I've learned enough. I found myself to a certain degree, and that I found that the community that also brings out the best in me, and where I can play a role and try and also impact lives and add value to other people. So really, Lüderitz has just been my safe space, and everywhere I go, I have great memories. And I would like to see Lüderitz just grow and grow and grow and be more people-centered and provide more opportunities to the less fortunate in our town. Because let's be honest, there's extreme poverty in that town.
Yes, there is.
Real hardship.
Real harsh poverty.
So it's not just an harsh environment. It's really harsh economic environment as well.
Is.
So when you walk around, it breaks your heart sometimes to see just the absolute poverty that some people live in. So if I have an ambition, I would like to see people just uplifted and having a better sense of living. So that's really where the sense of responsibility comes from now also, because we know we have an opportunity to impact lives and change it. So we need to make sure that we don't make unnecessary mistakes. We consider everything. We plan forward. We think and rethink. So really, it's an amazing opportunity. Yeah.
It certainly is, and we're going to come to that. But I first want to stay on Phil, the person and the mayor. Now, you mentioned a little bit earlier that you first arrived in Lüderitz around the late 90s, 1999, I think you mentioned. And since then, or during that period, up until when you actually become mayor, did you have an ambition, or did you ever envisage that you would become mayor of a town through such a critical period of transformation?
No, not in my wildest dreams. Never ever have I even really had an interest in politics, if I'm honest. I think I was raised very sheltered. So to me, it was brand new. And lo and behold, I saw my face on a poster and I thought, I have a dark past, which I don't think we have to dive into too much today. But the community of Lüderitz knew this. They knew that I've fallen many times in my youth and that I was trying to stand up and rebuild myself. And for them to put any faith in me was just the biggest surprise of all. Here we are 5 years later, and it's gone well. I've learned so much, really grown a lot, and it's just been the absolute honor of a lifetime to serve that community.
I can imagine. And Phil, there's so much there I want to ask about. Yeah. Not so much the dark past, but the transformations from that. But I kind of think that first kind of notion that I want to kind of say on behalf of Lüderitz, I kind of think it sounds like it was almost a happy coincidence of history that's led you to be a twist of fate. Yeah. And on behalf of the community, almost grateful for that. Because you never know how people are shaped to be at a certain point for a particularly important moment in time. I think you're just the right person for that.
It felt like a little bit of divine intervention, if I'm honest. It really wasn't something that I was shooting for, and now because I didn't aim for it, I just felt I have this responsibility to do the absolute best because people had faith in me.
I think that brings me to my second observation, is I do quite often think that people that didn't necessarily plan or have the bold ambition come then with either a sense of humility or grace, or dare I say almost naivety in a good way. Because I think if it is too calculated, one loses one's heart. And I think you predominantly heart and increasingly deliberation, which I think that balance will be extremely helpful. So I think that might have also been a good accident. But then in terms of since you've become mayor, and this is my last question here, is you spoke of that you've learned a lot. Are there, since you've become mayor, any personal transformation? How has your identity, intentionally or unintentionally, evolved as a consequence of this precious moment?
That's a brilliant question. I've never actually thought about it in that way. I think how it's changed me, and it's obviously a pressure cooker. So
of course, it's vice versa, right?
And that's what you mentioned, the naivety. I really did come in with I think a tidal wave of naivety, and what it's taught me, I guess it's made me a little bit stronger. I don't think you will ever be able to take away my emotional side. I'm emotionally driven, but it's made me a little tougher. I don't take things personally as much as I did in the beginning. It's easier to make certain compromises than it was before, because you understand certain perspectives a lot better than in the beginning. It's made me very sort of driven to learn as much as I can while I can, and to utilize that skill set to benefit the community while I'm there. You have a 5-year term. There's no promise of another term. I came in, tried to do my best, and it might be somebody else's turn to bring new eyeballs. And so I think it's really it's humbled me massively, because I know that a small decision can impact many people, and you really start thinking in a different sort of way. Sometimes you have to say no, and it's
getting that balance.
So this has really built me in many ways, and it's so tough to put my finger on it, but it's really, I've grown as a person, and I think even as a family man, because now I have to focus on making time for them.
Listening to you, Phil, I think that there's, Lüderitz been lucky to kind of have you in this moment of time, but I kind of think it's maybe Lüderitz also come at the right time for you.
Oh, yes.
So it is that moment that I call synchronicity in the world. And then that's, in my view at least, where magic happens. And
it's been, I was really lucky that things just worked out the way it was supposed to, in my mind's eye, anyways.
Let's move now a little bit to Lüderitz.
Okay.
Yeah, you've now in recent years witnessed how new economic opportunities come to the fore, and perhaps just for our listeners to be very explicit about that, it's economic development opportunities, so external investors that have now seen opportunity in Lüderitz that's giving it this opportunity for identity transformation. There's examples like kelp farming, salmon farming, green hydrogen production, oil, and I know you're going to explain a bit more of that for us. But before we get to the more economic elements that's giving now this catapult or impetus to transform the town, can you just for a moment tell me, how does the community see this potential of new economic opportunities? What's on the ground in the minds of the community?
Again, there we have 50-50. You know, we have two camps. The one camp is really comfortable in the small town and without drastic changes. They love the town the way it is, and they would like to keep it that way at all costs. And then you have the other camp. So these are the people that are really excited because they're seeing opportunities coming their way. You know, we have massive unemployment. You know, I'll guess that we over 50% unemployment in Lüderitz,
huge.
And people are struggling. So this has really reignited so much hope. I look at it again as a Christmas tree, and I've been using that analogy from the beginning, because when you look at, let's call it oil and gas, you have this Christmas tree with this angel right at the very top, and that's oil and gas. And then all these ornaments on the way down and these trinkets and things, that's the supporting industries and all the wonderful opportunities that we are already seeing coming to Lüderitz. And when you look at other industries, that's, you know, finally there's a mall on the way. Everybody's massively excited. If I'm honest, I still think the town is still a little small.
I was just going to say I have my reservations about a mall being a transformative act, but in any
yeah,
way,
you know, that's,
or not yet.
That's been the one thing that's also from day one, the community of Lüderitz sort of demanded from the political leadership. They want a mall, and they want products that they can choose. And we really are fortunate now where the town is moving into a position where this is becoming a lot more feasible than it was when we started, of course. And yes, in other situations and other areas and towns, we've learned from them, you know, how a mall can affect your business sector. You know, mom and dad shops don't, you know, do that well anymore and have to close down after 3 decades or whatever the case may be. So we really considerate about this as well. But I'm excited about the Christmas tree, because this is where people will benefit. Yeah.
And it's the entire tree that forms a view. I quite like that analogy. And I'm going to come back. I, for a moment, want to stay a little bit with the community. Phil, can you perhaps give us some language? So, like literally some of the fears community members or hopes or expectations that the community expresses to you. Can you give us some insight to literally what's on their minds? What do they say?
Yeah, well, I guess the dominant one is the fear of missing out. They do not want to be left behind. They do not want to see a labor force of 15, 20,000 people being brought from elsewhere and they remain in the same situation. They want to be uplifted. So that is the ultimate fear to everybody there, is they don't want to miss out. The second thing is obviously environment. You spoke about, we have the most pristine area there, you know, with the world-class bio area that has succulents and plant species that you can only find there in the whole world, you know. So it's really a sensitive area. People are, you know, when they hear about these big projects of grandeur, then it's like, oh, we are afraid that we're going to lose what makes this area special. So people-centered planning and environmental sensitivities are all
vital.
And then they're very afraid, obviously, as a town grows, more people come, the socioeconomics change, will crime increase?
Social safety there.
These are there was already a bit of a, you know, increase in crime. And then people are really afraid that the town will lose its charm. You know, it's a charming little, quaint little town. It's very unique in its own way.
On the one hand, when a town grows, it is important that one embrace new. But of course, you want to hold on to the old, and unfortunately, compromises need to be made. But I think the important point that you make, that can we grow at a pace where the important elements are not lost? And I think that's important. I want you raise this notion that the town is poor. And in fact, it's very poor. In the time that we worked together, it, of course, kind of identified that most of the people are either low or ultra low. As a council, how does the fact that the town is poor influence your decision making?
Yeah, it has an effect on everything. Affordability, is
Yes.
probably a big crippling point for us. When you look at providing housing, um, the affordability is always that one critical factor that we need to consider, because we do not get limitless funds
Of
from
course
government
not.
to
Yes.
subsidize housing opportunities and things like that. So to us, I think it's probably always the biggest factor is, yes, we can build 500 homes, but who on our 4,000 long wait list can afford it?
Very
Affordability is
complicated.
probably the number one key thing, and that's why we want to see jobs coming to Lüderitz, because first you create the wealth, first you create the job opportunities, the affordability, then you move into the next phase where you can get your house and afford it and send your kids to varsity and all these things. But it really starts at the first step is getting people into jobs.
I love what you say there, Phil, because I think as a placemaker, quite often, if I work in poor countries,
Yeah.
there's a huge emphasis that predominantly politicians place on uplifting or remediating the social issues,
Yeah.
and then de-emphasizing the all-important sustainable wealth creation.
Yeah.
That is actually the way in which you help people in the long term.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that you raised that point. Now, you spoke a little bit earlier also about the fact that there are two camps,
Yeah.
those that are really poor or perhaps hungry for this economic development more so than others,
Yeah.
and or perhaps captivated by the potential.
Yeah.
And then there's another camp that would like to preserve what you currently have and rather keep what they know. How do you as a council or mayor balance these two camps and bring some reconciliation
Yeah.
to potential tension there?
It's a simple answer to a very complex question, but dialogue.
Love that.
We talk and we talk and we talk and we fight things out. And again, when you have a community and we can sit around a table and people can raise their points, somewhere along the line, we can make certain compromises and everybody buys in. And that's really been, I think, the one thing that we've tried to do all this time is manage
Yes.
expectations in Lüderitz and manage the cohesion. Make sure that, yes, you might be opposed to the green hydrogen project for whatever your reasons might be, but let's also look at the sort of the other socio-economic aspects of these
Yes.
people on the other camp, and how do we bring them together and both of them sacrifice enough where we find this healthy compromise where we're equally unhappy. I always use that as a joke.
Yes.
But it really,
Yeah.
it's
That's
really
a better way, then it's less competitive,
Yeah.
actually, as opposed to who wins. Let's
Yeah. So I think dialogue, as many stakeholder engagements as you can have. And it's because of this approach where we've been fortunate enough to identify some stumbling blocks right in the beginning. I think many politicians make that mistake where they think that they know so much and they plan in isolation and they shove their wants and needs or dreams down the community's throats.
Yes, almost tell them.
Yeah, so we're going to do this, and there's no retort. But in our case, really, I think from the beginning, when we heard about these opportunities, we went to the community to say, listen, we've got these opportunities now. What do we feel? What do we consider? How
So
do
the
we plan?
decisions in
And
their
you
hands.
were there from the very, very onset. And I think that's one of the things that you were really driving for, stakeholder engagements, to start building this roadmap, because we didn't know a lot in the beginning. So first we had to find out what we didn't know. And that was through stakeholder engagements.
It always is.
And was it just stakeholder engagements like, meeting your residents? It's stakeholder engagements of meeting interministerial groups, SOEs, foreign delegates. That really, I think we took such a holistic approach that enabled us right now to start making some real tangible progress. I think that is what made the big difference between us and I think some other towns that I
Yes,
see
of
really
course.
struggling to capitalize on the opportunities that they have, is that they didn't have the kind of assistance that we've been blessed to have.
And also the notion, and for you to hear, that one of the key things is to bring the people along. Because
Yeah.
if people participate, they feel they've been heard,
Yeah.
and they feel they're part of the decision making, then you capture the hearts and minds
Yeah.
of the community and that they rally behind you.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely a big proponent about that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to shift a little bit for us to look at around the governance side of transformations, identity transformations of a town like Lüderitz.
Yeah.
Now, like you've intimated, you and I had the great fortune to work together for about 7-8 months, late 2023 into a big part of 2024.
Yeah.
And I know a lot has changed.
Yeah.
But at least one of my opinions then was that Namibia, on a national level, hadn't at that stage a deep precedent around how one proactively, consciously, deliberately transform a town as a consequence of economic impetus. And therefore it was quite challenging for me to bring sufficient understanding and pace setting and tone setting from a national government to you as a local government to unlock your potential. Like you said in the beginning, you're a small, humble council, perhaps underinvested up until that point. How do you perceive that gap? And what would real national and regional backing look like for you?
I think really when I look back to the approach when you were still part of the team then, that was really what set us going in what we're achieving this year. We finally got our hands on a little bit of funds that we never saw before. On average we would get about 5 million Namibian. This time we got 91 million, which drastically changes what we could do. And to us, infrastructure and things like this was the highest priority. But I think since your departure, we've lost a little bit of that momentum. And this question is really what brings me back to, I think as a central government with opportunities and it's of state importance, of national importance when you look at oil and gas and hydrogen and why they chose Lüderitz, you then need to, as a government, deploy teams or have a parallel team that focuses just on that. So
I agree.
Alleviating the pressure from the capacity challenges that the council might have. We're not a municipality. We don't have our own engineers. We don't have our own environmental practitioners. And, so what we would have liked to have seen and still do is to see government deploy special attention, special help, because the normal way of doing things, which we're still doing now, is, very, very slow. It has lots of opportunities to misunderstand each other or misalign. When you look at how perceptions also are formed here in Windhoek, when they aren't familiar with the situation on the ground. So what we would have liked to have seen is a dedicated team, whatever we would have called them is, I guess, irrelevant, but a sort of a project management, town transformation arm that could independently and then also work under the council auspices, make sure that we make real tangible progress.
Absolutely.
The bureaucracy isn't fast, especially when we're looking at the complexities of Lüderitz, when we camped in by the nature reserves, the diamond areas, and then the ocean. So you have a lot of strategic stakeholders again, and having them around one table while we identify certain plans, then other people can weigh in and say, listen, this is going to be a challenge for us, so let's rather try and do it this way. And I think that's where we started very well, and then unfortunately lost that momentum to where now we're back to sort of individually approaching people again. We've just restarted that technical working group, which we started with you. We have new ministers, new EDs, and everybody that we're trying to get on board.
Yes,
and
of course, you had a new president in the meantime, which needs a whole new cabinet.
That really,
a whole need to re-educate.
I think it was a good thing also. I think fresh eyes, fresh perspectives, fresh energy. Really, it's encouraging. And when you speak to the new leadership, they seem very keen and interested. So from our end, we would just like to see a little special prioritization,
I agree.
So that's been a challenge.
And I think there are a couple of things, again, Phil, you answer these questions so in depth, and there's so much that I'd love to unpick in these elements and in your answers. One comment, just as to your point and your appeal and your request or recommendation is, that a special task force, if you like, is ring-fenced for purposes of this. And just to share that notion, that is really increasingly, as placemaking is becoming more prominent in the world, it's becoming commonplace for governments or regional governments, if it's not national governments, to actually either create special development vehicles that house this projects, because they last typically 15, 20 years to transform a place. It's not quick projects, to make sure that they require, like you said, that dedicated attention for people that carry the vision, carry the strategy, and then can carry it across political agendas and carry that knowledge with them. or I think another instance where we also see special legislation being passed.
Yeah.
Again, to give the project just clarity and the platform on which to actually operate. So I definitely kind of echo your view in that. But, maybe we will still get there. I also want to speak to kind of this notion of specialists on the ground, because I think that's really quite important.
Yeah.
Before we speak a little bit about potential recommendations, give me a bit of insight of what is it on the ground that people remotely don't understand. So what can national government not understand from their offices in Windhoek compared to what you face day to day on the ground? What is that happens that is hard to make them understand, that's important, that really impacts you day to day?
Again, such a heavy question, and I have a simple answer for it. At the end of the day, all of our capacities and abilities boil down to funding.
Yes.
So without sufficient or proper funding, it'll all just be pie in the sky. So every time we lobby or try to get funding for certain initiatives, it's my opinion that the people in decision-making positions here in Windhoek don't understand the real challenges in the town. So when we speak about topography, I don't think they always understand just how rocky or very hard rock the area is, and undulating. We've got hills and all kinds of things. So servicing land is 3 times more expensive.
Absolutely.
And it's not, it's not because we're trying to pull the wool over the eyes of anybody. It's just 3 times more expensive because of the hard rock you need to blast and the isolation. You need to bring equipment and all kinds of things down. So to us, that has been the challenge, is to get the people in Windhoek to understand that, listen, when we say we need help to upgrade this 120-year-old infrastructure, and we need X amount, and this and this is the reasons for it. Sometimes it's like they I don't want to say they don't believe it, but
they don't have the context.
They can't make. They can't put it into context. The rationale behind it just doesn't make a ton of sense because of their practical experience here.
Being elsewhere.
Where equipment is everywhere, specialists are everywhere. Competition is really stiff here in Windhoek, so, prices would be more competitive. We're down there. It's a completely different thing. When we look at developers that want to build, let's say, 500 houses, we can't wait 4 years for the Attorney General to approve that. We need things to be quick. And I don't think that people always understand the pressures that Lüderitz is under. And I guess when it comes from myself, they find it a little biased, because obviously your mayor is going to be pushing so hard for support and things for their town. When it's in our situation, it's not us trying to lie or trying to find more help that we don't really need.
Phil, I'm also intimately familiar with the fact that you've got a lot of philanthropic support from Europe and especially from Germany. And recognizing, the sort of colonial history and Africa's legacy of relying on philanthropy, it obviously can add a lot of value, no doubt. But are there challenges that comes with potentially outsourcing a town's identity transformation to foreigners? How do you experience that? What is your view of that?
I think when we started working on this all together, we didn't have a lot of support. I think we were still working on a new twinning partnership with a small town in Germany called Lüderitz also.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think there are 900 people in that little rural town. Amazing little town. Amazing people. And what they've managed to do is put us on tables with other like-minded thinkers. And that's unlocked a lot of support, But one challenge now is that we're very, very fortunate to start getting support. Unfortunately, it's not always monetary. I think most of the times it's skills and expertise, which we need. A little bit of funding would also help. But now it's difficult to keep everybody aligned. All of them have their certain priority areas. So when you go to the Dutch are on wastewater. So that's one of the priorities for them, I think, in this dispensation. When you go to Germany, their focus would be, let's say, waste management and environmental practices. And then when you speak to, other institutions, they might be willing to help upskill your IT division. So in every case, it's very difficult to find what is the areas that they are interested in and what is our need and how do we get things to align. So sometimes we get offers for help that we can't
accommodate.
So yeah, it's been a challenge to juggle the support
Yes.
and making sure that we make the most of it also. But yes, there is a neo-colonialism sort of aspect or fear that many people keep raising. I think we trying to manage that is by being in the driver's seat ourselves. So we rely on your expertise when it comes to urban planning or waste management.
Yes.
Because obviously you have other technology that we're not exposed to yet. But we drive the bus and we call the shots and we ask what we want for and how we want it. Sometimes it might not even be feasible. But,
of course.
But I think the way we try to make it is we're not being told what to do. We ask for your advice and we make the decision ourselves.
I really appreciate that, because you used to say people come with real good intent, but with their biases, and perhaps don't have the long-term accountability that you have, and or perhaps the deep sense of localization and belonging. And I'm not saying that that's a mistake, but it means it's just perhaps limited in really understanding where it might fit in the bigger picture. So I'm very pleased, because I know in the time that we worked together, we worked quite hard to make sure we convinced Namibia not to outsource the strategic planning ownership from a governance perspective, but of course welcome and accept and receive these contributions from other countries and places that might have specialist experience that can complement you. So I think that's a really fantastic outcome.
And we're really fortunate now that we have the best, in my opinion anyways, the city of Leipzig, they're the ones that wrote the Leipzig Charter, so it's really about urbanization and urban expansion and then also decline. So we're really looking at all these different things, and that's, to me, the most exciting thing about my job is that we get to consider so many factors. No stone is left unturned. Every single thing is thought about multiple times, and it keeps it fresh every day, because you never know what are we considering today, and love it, absolutely love it. It's that I'm having the time of my life.
And it feels like that, and I think how precious that, because I don't think we all get that lucky in life, or perhaps just once in a life. So for sure, enjoy it for all that it is. But I want to come to this notion of one of my other deep experiences in identity transformations more broadly, and I'll bring it to placemaking. Second is this notion is, if you need to move to something new, if you don't have the picture of what that new looks like, you want to, you have to, but you stumble a little bit in the dark and get misdirected. And the context now of placemaking and Lüderitz, it manifests itself in the absence of a clear vision for the town. And again, there, like you've intimated earlier, some people had grand visions of what it could look like, even as big as Dubai, and some that was perhaps more modest and humble and realistic. In your opinion, what does the absence of a very clear, short-term, realistic vision look like? For you, and what does the absence really bring about as concerns for you?
It's like walking through a room in the dark without a flashlight, full of furniture, if you don't have that vision, because you'll be stumbling around in the dark all day. So I think we have a much clearer image of what we hope to see. But again, we're also trying to keep it fluid, that we know much can still change, and I think that's really where our job has become very, very important now, is to manage expectations, because we did overhype it in the beginning. I was one of those that's very guilty of it. We saw these opportunities come. We didn't consider all the complexities behind it. We just saw that we are going to develop this town into the next Dubai. And now that reality is setting in and the hype is over, we need to bring our people back and obviously still keep them excited. But realistically, it's important to have a bit of an idea and in that direction, which we're fortunate to have now, but to be adaptive or adaptable, be able to respond and to be considerate that some things won't materialize, some things will fall away. So what is your backup plan when you lose that key amenity? Is another industry reliant on that? Because that will have a ripple effect. And
exactly.
So, and how do you minimize that effect on those businesses or on the community itself.
But I don't think you should be too hard on yourself or being sort of perhaps over-optimistic in the beginning, because I think at the time, 2 years ago, there was a lot more promise of what would be. I think it was, so strongly believed that oil would come in a large scale to Lüderitz, that hydrogen will happen at a particular pace of development. And time moves. And of course, now we're at a place where there's a lot more clarity of what those may or may not be.
And reality.
And I think it's not a bad thing to have that beginning where everybody's quite excited, because that's where you caught their attention and captured the imagination. But like you say, now to come and be a lot more grounded and sober. And I again want to go to that almost Christmas tree analogy I've used. Yes, of course, we know that an angel eventually might or could or would look nice at the top of the Christmas tree, but really what is pretty is all these little trinkets.
Exactly.
And that will bring a lot more, I think, almost resilience to the economy, where some of the white knights could actually expose you to more booms and busts, like we've seen with oil and gas elsewhere in the world.
And you just made me think about something when we look at that Christmas tree again. You don't start by putting that angel on the Christmas tree. That's the last thing you do.
Of course, no. I think it's a fantastic metaphor. So, Phil, I'm going to come back now to kind of really what is the core of our discussion and adaptable is this notion of an identity of a town. So we're speaking now a lot about the technical aspects, the technical potential. But if we look beyond that, looking at an identity of a town, and we spoke so much in the beginning of that kind of Buchter identity. Is there a vision for what the identity of the town should be or could be? 20 years from now, what would that or could that be?
I would like to imagine that Buchter community or sense of pride will only build. We'll modernize it to a certain degree without changing its DNA. But bring it into the 21st century, with lots of new people will come lots of new ways of thinking and doing. But let's incorporate them in, let's make them part of the Buchter family from the start. The rich tapestry that they'll help us create with a colorful, real Nama, traditional sort of looking, quilt, if you will, that we'll stitch together. I really feel that we will walk away with even more pride and more connectiveness and unity as a community, because some of these challenges will always remain. Our isolation will always be there.
It's a fact. Yes.
The weather conditions will always be.
I don't think that Atlantic wind will stop blowing.
So no, I look forward to seeing the Buchter pride just growing and growing, where eventually people from other places will be even more jealous of our cohesive society down in Lüderitz.
And hopefully bottle that and export that.
If only we could.
Phil, it's in my experience when we speak about identity, people, of course, quite often speak about what you reach towards and what you'd like to keep. But very seldom do we speak, in identity transformations, even of a place. It is an opportunity to shed what is not working for you, right? And that's why we actually undergo identity transformations, is to reach for better and then hopefully leave behind the not so good. Could you give us a little bit of insight of what you think might be helpful for Lüderitz to leave behind?
That's this sort of harkens back to the little bit of the dark side that I didn't want to chat too much about. But we have real socioeconomic evils in our town, and I think it's global issues, but we are small enough that we can still manage it, and many of these socioeconomic evils are caused by poverty,
deep poverty,
and the loss of hope, that loss of ambition. People just finish school and there's nothing to do in Lüderitz. There's not even after, you can't even pursue your talents as a sportsman, really, or an artist of what, there really weren't a lot of opportunities for you to excel or to go to the next level. So people did fall back into bad habits. So what I hope to see is where with these new opportunities coming, arts and culture, sports, education, job opportunities where you can pursue your dreams, and I hope these things will take away that time that we had, the free time to spend on the wrong things, that we can rather spend that time on the things that will build us up and take us forward. And there's a real hunger for it. I still do a ton of outreach especially because I connect with many of the guys in let's call it the slums. I go there and we chat, and I know that feeling. It was I shared that feeling, and I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired that I can feel it when I sit and chat with them.
That.
And they want to get out of this dark hole that they
Yes.
find themselves in. But you need other solutions. I was very fortunate where I wasn't in Lüderitz during that time. So there were other, let's call it, religious groups that I could go for support, or I could get some medical care if I needed it, or psychiatric care even if I needed it, which we don't have down there. It isn't accessible. So we need to bring certain amenities, social, I think amenities is a key
services, tools,
something that we don't have down there yet, or especially not at the level that we need it. We have some social workers, but I think we can do a ton more to just pick people up from where they are. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I know again, it's so complex because you're right. There's so many technical stuff that needs to go into town that's critical again because it's poor, and infrastructure, housing. That's very hard and very physical and very concrete. But like you say, at least from my experience, where transformations are won and lost is the human transformations you achieve. I don't know if you're aware, but in my time working with your council, I actually did a lot of social development work into the council. And like you say, I was so touched by the fact that they were really responsive and ready for this. And here we're talking about, speaking about addressing social behaviors like alcoholism, drug abuse, all sorts of outward behavior. But I think in essence, my heart felt that what Lüderitz as a people needed was a restore of self-respect and self-esteem.
I feel the alcoholism and drug abuse and crime, that's a consequence.
Exactly.
We need to address the root cause, and the root cause is the lack of opportunity, and there's no getting around that. We just don't have the opportunities. And again, that's a national thing. It's an international thing. You get many societies that just don't have the opportunities. But again, I think we in such an amazing opportunity now, where the town is still small, the opportunities are massive. Let's lay this roadmap out with a clear vision of how do we overcome some of these challenges, because we don't have to retrospectively do it like many other places. Like in Windhoek, it's a big city.
It's already there.
If they had to try and do something about it, it would take them a decade, a century. In our case, it's still small enough, it's manageable enough with the growth and the amenities and services that we bring now. I feel it's possible to make a massive dent in it. We probably will never root it out completely, but I think when you speak to these kids and even adults, that when it comes to that, they all say, just give me an opportunity and I'll turn my life around.
Absolutely, and I think people just cry out for that. And again, I love your understanding of that human quality, because quite often people look at a place transformation and say, well, the big things, the outward-looking things need to change, or the institutionals need to change. And those are all true. There's no doubt. But the real transformation comes if you begin to transform the individuals and their outlooks, their livelihoods, because if they change, they become your investors, they become the culture carriers, they become the cohesion of your community, which is kind of really that deep essence.
You can have it all. You can have the best amenities and services. If you don't have the people behind it and prepare your people for it, then these things will be useless. It'll be white elephants. So
and that happens. We've got many examples of that in the world. Phil, I've got one more personal question for you. What about this transformation program has been something that has been emotionally challenging for you? What has really been emotionally hard and tough as part of this process?
I think two things. Number one is obviously the pressure of knowing that, listen, we're taking some really, really important decisions that we will probably only know 10 years down the line if we took the right decision today.
I love that.
So that's a real sense of responsibility and duty. That is a heavy load, if I'm honest. It's not easy.
The shoulders.
I think that you get many people that carry that load easily because they don't really make that attachment as much as I do. But I'm, again, a very emotionally driven person, so there will be an emotional attachment to decision making as well. The second thing is sometimes exposing yourself to go out to the community, to see just the abject poverty that they live in. That sort of breaks you also, you know.
It does. It's hard.
When you come from a, you know, I also, you know, would have big ambitions of, you know, where I want to be and what I want to have one day. But when you get there and you realize, like, I don't appreciate anything that I have,
Yes.
and you see people, you know, especially the mayor's office, when people come to my office and they ask for help, and you're not able to help, in many cases, they ask for things that's not within my mandate. And they sit there and they sob. It's difficult having that, again, that emotional person that I am, to disconnect sometimes. I don't think it's
hard.
possible for me. I really feel that I'm better for it anyways, being emotional and being caring. It's better than being hard and standoffish. So yeah, that's the challenge, is really just carrying the load.
And does somebody help you with that? Because quite often one as leaders need to be brave out there in the world, and yet one's heart suffers a little bit. You know, is there any way that you could offload that or share, you know, that you know, disappointments or challenges?
Amazing support structure, you know, with my family.
Great,
they're always there. They carry the load with me, if I'm honest.
Yes, of course.
It's not that I want to put the load on them, but they're there and they carry it so selflessly. And then obviously I have real backup and support from my council. It's really an amazing group of people with their strong suits. Everybody has their superpower in a specific area.
Yes.
And we carry the load together, and we encourage and we uplift, and we really work well together. So I'm fortunate. I have a whole army behind me. So
that's great to have, because not everybody has that. And
Yeah.
good for you for, I'm sure it's got a lot to do with who you are. The fact that you have an army behind you, so I'm sure that's not also quite an accident.
Yeah, no, I can't take any credit for that.
Well, I'm doing it on your behalf.
It's the Buchter community. They just that kind of people.
Which is, again, so special to have. Phil, there are a couple of sort of, you know, questions I have for you as we close this conversation. Unfortunately, and I think you and I can discuss, you know, for hours, the whole day, if we could. I want to ask, in terms of now, you know, having sort of, I think, about 3-4 years now of transformation experience, to town transformation specialists, to councils out there, to governments out there, to potential investors out there, what would be your advice for them to consider before they actually go about transforming a place? What should they really bear in mind?
Ooh, that is a question and a half. Well, I think if you consider that in the first place, that it's coming from a good opportunity. So you have a brilliant opportunity that encourages. That's the catalyst. I think it's often easy to forget, because most of these specialists don't come from that area or that town.
Of course, they're not local.
So, you know, they might bring certain preconceived notions or you know, and that's what experiences teaches you anyways. So yes, they'll bring their experience down, but in many cases it might not be as applicable in that specific area.
Context.
So in my opinion, be as open-minded and as flexible and adaptive as possible when you start a process like this, because there's a lot that you will learn through this process, where in the beginning you had a pretty clear idea, and 5 years later you'll look back on yourself and think that I had no idea. So my advice is just know that 5 years down the line you will look back and think that we didn't have a clue. So just prepare yourself for that. You know, be open, be ready to respond, and don't lose sight of the ethical side of it. You know, why we do what we do. It's all about the people. You know, it's not about the credit or the fame or it's, you know, how do we impact that little kid that is running down the street barefooted? You know, what kind of life are we planning for them?
Phil, that's another reason why I'm so grateful that you are in the helm at the moment, because I think in my experience, egos can so quickly confuse the actual goal and the actual purpose. And I think, I really sincerely believe in you standing up every morning wanting to do the right thing.
Thank you.
And I think that doesn't mean one's going to get it perfect,
Yeah.
but I think you get a closer chance on getting it right if you know you carry that responsibility and you honor that. So I really in that regard, wish you all the very best to get it more right than most, because you've got it in the right order of priority.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's learning every day. And again, I'm just here to serve. I'm not there to be served in any way. So as long as I keep serving, I know I'm doing something good. That's all.
And that's a humbling opportunity to have in life. So one has to take that seriously. So my ultimate question to you then, Phil, is what are your hopes for Lüderitz? If we were to sit here, literally sit here in 10 years from now, what would you have hoped, would have realized? What would be true?
Yeah. I hope for a town where old Buchters and new Buchters are so proud of how we got things right, where people from other places are jealous of us for the way we managed to overcome what most, and even sometimes deep inside, I feel that it's impossible, some of the things we're trying to achieve. But I also feel that it's worth trying. So I hope for a town where everybody has a place, a sense of belonging, that real pride, opportunity, and just a town that is known for being a unit. We're going in the same direction together. We fight everything together. We overcome everything together. I want Lüderitz to be known for that one day.
And I hope you achieve that, because as it becomes bigger in size and changes, that's at risk.
Yeah.
And I sincerely hope for you that you can sustain and maintain that thread across your transformation process.
Thank you. No, I think I'm lucky that the foundation was laid by many people before me. We already have that cohesive society down there.
Yes.
So we just have to keep building on it and polishing that rough diamond. So
I love also that Nama quilt metaphor that you mentioned, that we're just adding more blocks to the quilt,
exactly.
And more will add beyond us.
Yeah.
And this will hopefully just be a very colourful and positive aspect that's been added to that quilt.
That's what I really love about the Nama culture, is also these little throwaway pieces of material,
That's
how they
right,
can turn that into something so amazing. So again, this little throwaway town, we're going to turn this country into an amazing tapestry.
And I think you've got the country behind you. I think everybody wants Lüderitz to evolve and to become something of a crowning jewel in its crown.
It's been amazing, the support we've received over the past few years. We've really been thrown into the limelight as a town. We're on everybody's lips. We in the papers. We're in opportunities like these. So no, Lüderitz is really fortunate. We're just riding this wave and making the most of every opportunity as they come.
I'm really, really happy on behalf of the Lüderitz and, of course, the country of the opportunity. But, Phil, I also want to take the opportunity just to briefly thank you for welcoming me in that period that I worked alongside your team. I think that made for gold, because it meant we could really build some trust on which good information and some foundations could be added to what was already there and have been added since. So thank you for welcoming me and having me a small part of your story, which was an honor.
We miss you, Rita. Salience really brought so much to the party. I know this is not me trying to promote your business now, but honestly, it was a real privilege and pleasure working with you. I think you brought real clarity and vision to what we were doing when we were stumbling around in a dark room. So I'd highly recommend any community that have opportunities that you sort of need services like that. Don't try and do it on your own. It's not as easy as it sounds. What I loved most about having you on our team back then is that it's difficult to get all the sheep in the crowd. Everybody is focused on their things, and we had you as our herder. Every now and then, every month, we have this meeting, and we knew we didn't have to worry about it because you were behind it. We were going to have that meeting. And I think everybody else in similar positions, and Oranje Moon's another great example. Don't try and do it on your own when there's amazing talent and expertise out there that can really just make it easier for you. So bring in the experts. don't try and do it yourself, because focus on the things that you're great at, and rely on other people's expertise, and then you just have a better product.
And all united and bring it together.
Exactly.
So I so agree with that.
We hope we can have you back soon. But I think now it's crunch time. We have 5 years before these big industries hopefully kick off. So there's not a lot of time. And my poor team, they're burning the candle at both ends. I really feel for them. It's such a small core team of people that have to do their day-to-day things, all of this extra. And you have me as a slave driver here on their necks every day. So I really feel for them, and I really appreciate having an amazing team. But hopefully we'll see you back in the team soon.
And if not, we'll be sitting here in 5 years and discuss hopefully how far you've come.
I really look forward to that.
Thank you for joining us and for sharing so authentically, Phil. It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
It's been an honor. Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity.